Every advantage you have spent years building is being replicated right now by someone with more time, more resources, or less to lose. This is not a warning about the future. This is a description of what is already happening. Right now, the skill you developed over 3 years is being taught in an accelerated program that takes 3 months. The credential you earned is being pursued by hundreds of people who identified the same signal you identified and are moving toward it with the same logic. The network you built through years of consistent presence and demonstrated reliability is being constructed by someone with a deliberate outreach strategy and a calendar blocked for relationship development. The capital you accumulated is being matched by someone who raised it, borrowed it, or found a partner who had it. Every advantage the system taught you to build, every advantage it rewards and validates and celebrates, can be acquired by anyone with sufficient motivation and sufficient time. Consider what that means structurally. You are not competing in a system where building something valuable makes you secure. You are competing in a system where building something valuable makes you a target. The moment your advantage is visible enough to be worth replicating, and the replication timeline is compressing. What once required a decade of institutional access and professional development can now be approximated in months by someone with the right tools, the right courses, and the right focus. The barrier is not what it was. The barrier is not what most people still believe it to be: skills. The assumption has always been that mastering a domain creates durable protection, that deep competence is difficult enough to develop that it functions as a moat. This was partially true in an environment where the feedback loops were slow, the instruction was scarce, and the tools were expensive. That environment is gone. AI-assisted learning, high-quality instruction available at minimal cost, open-source tooling, and compressed feedback cycles have reduced the timeline to professional competence in most fields from years to months. The skill is not the moat anymore. The skill is the entry requirement. Credentials. A credential confirms that a person has met a standard. That is the entire architecture of the certification system, which means any person who meets the same standard holds the same credential. Credentials differentiate within a cohort. They do not extract you from the cohort. They place you inside a legible, comparable, rankable group, and the ranking is always subject to revision by the next person who completes the same program. Networks. Network can be built by anyone willing to add value consistently over time. The geographic, informational, and social barriers that once made network development a genuinely scarce resource have been systematically reduced. The person building a network today has structural access to the same people as anyone else willing to do the work at the same volume and the same consistency. Capital. The minimum viable amount required to begin has declined dramatically. Bootstrap financing, platform monetization, revenue-based funding. The capital barrier has never been lower. Capital is copyable by anyone who can raise it or begin without it. This is not pessimism. This is the structure of modern competition, and understanding it clearly is the prerequisite for escaping it. Because the only rational response to a competition structure designed to make every advantage temporary is to stop building temporary advantages and start building the one category of advantage that the structure cannot reach. Not a better skill, not a rarer credential, not a larger network or a more impressive capital base. Something that operates outside the replication logic entirely. Something assembled from elements that cannot be separated from the specific life that produced them. But there is a category of advantage that operates entirely outside this structure, and Machiavelli understood exactly how to build it. What cannot be replicated is not a skill, not a credential, not a contact list. It is a position, specifically the position produced by the unrepeatable intersection of 3 elements that only your particular life trajectory could have generated. Not a better version of what everyone else is building. Something categorically different. Something that sits outside the replication structure entirely. The first element is your lived experience stack. Not experience in the general sense. Years accumulated, titles held, industries visited. The lived experience stack is the specific combination of contexts, failures, environments, and transitions that your particular path has assembled in a particular sequence. This is not about the prestige of the individual experiences. It is about the combination. It is about the sequence. A person who spent 4 years in criminal defense law, then moved into prison reform policy work, then built a legal technology company serving public defenders, has a perspective that cannot be manufactured by anyone who did not follow that specific path, in that specific order during that specific period in each of those worlds. They understand why the technology fails that policy people design, why the policy ignores what the attorneys know, and why the attorneys distrust the technologists. That simultaneous visibility is not a skill, it is not knowledge, it is a position, and positions cannot be copied the way skills can. To replicate your experience stack, someone would need to live your life in your sequence, inside your specific organizations, failing in your specific ways, at the specific moments in those industries' histories when you were present. That is not a barrier. That is a wall with no door. The second element is contextual trust capital. And this is where most people fundamentally misunderstand what trust actually is as a professional asset. General reputation is copyable. Broad credibility is copyable. What is not copyable is the specific trust that insiders extend to each other inside a particular community after years of shared experience and demonstrated reliability in situations that mattered. This form of trust is not about being known. It is about being trusted in a particular way by particular people who have particular reasons grounded in direct observation to extend it. A newcomer to any established field encounters this immediately. The credentials are fine, the reputation is solid, and the trust is simply not available, because that trust is not granted on the basis of external signals. It is earned through time, through consistent presence, through being there when things were difficult and delivering when it would have been easier not to. There is no shortcut. And here is the part nobody says directly. There is no shortcut, not because the path is difficult, but because the shortcut destroys the thing it is trying to produce. Trust built quickly, in contexts where it has not been tested, is not the same asset. It is a different, weaker, and far more fragile thing. The production process cannot be accelerated without degrading the product itself. That is what makes contextual trust capital genuinely uncopyable. The third element is perspective arbitrage. From the vantage point your specific experience stack and contextual trust have created, you can see things that people without that vantage point cannot see. Not because you are more intelligent, because you are standing somewhere that reveals connections, contradictions, and opportunities that are simply invisible from any other location. You have seen the problem from multiple sides simultaneously, and the person standing only inside one of those domains cannot see what you see. The way someone standing at the base of a hill cannot see the valley visible only from the ridge. Perspective arbitrage is when the insight that feels obvious to you, the thing you have to actively restrain yourself from stating impatiently in every meeting, is the thing that appears extraordinary to everyone else in the room. That frustration, the experience of explaining something that seems perfectly clear and watching others work to follow it, is often perspective arbitrage in operation. You are describing what is visible from your position. They cannot see it because they have not stood where you have stood. Consider what Machiavelli observed about the holders of high ground. The prince who controls elevated terrain does not win because he attacks more effectively from above. He wins because attacking him costs more than the potential prize can justify. The calculation shifts entirely. The attacker faces an asymmetric problem. The cost of assault is concrete and immediate. The value of the territory must be weighed against losses that are predictable and severe. Defenders of high ground do not need superior armies. They need only a position that makes conquest prohibitively expensive. Proprietary positioning operates on the same logic. The person who holds a specific intersection of experience, trust, and perspective does not need to outcompete everyone who enters the field. They need only to occupy ground where the cost of displacing them exceeds whatever the competition calculates they would gain by doing so. And because that ground was built from an unrepeatable life trajectory, the cost of displacing you is not high. It is infinite. You cannot be displaced from a position that nobody else could have occupied in the first place. This is the asset. Not a skill that can be taught, not a credential that can be earned, not a network that can be cultivated through patience and strategic intent. A position so specifically assembled from the materials of your particular path that the honest answer to the question of who else could occupy it is nobody. Anyone can acquire what you know. Nobody can acquire the specific combination of where you have been, who trusted you there, and what you can see from that position that they cannot. Machiavelli is remembered as a theorist of aggression, but that reading misses what he actually studied most carefully. The reputation comes from selective quotation. The ends justify the means. It is better to be feared than loved. Power requires ruthlessness. These lines are real, and they are not entirely wrong, but they represent a fraction of what Machiavelli actually observed across decades of watching Italian city-states rise, collapse, and occasionally endure. What he studied most persistently was not how to conquer, it was how to become impossible to dislodge. He drew a distinction that most readers move past without stopping. The distinction between power maintained by force and power maintained by position. Force is expensive. It requires constant input to sustain. It is vulnerable to any force larger than itself, and it exhausts the person who wields it. A ruler who holds power through force alone must be continuously vigilant, continuously active, continuously willing to spend resources defending what they hold. The moment they stop, the position begins to erode. Position, by contrast, is self-maintaining when it has been correctly established. The person who holds the right position does not need to fight continuously. They need only to remain where they are. And the longer they have held it, the more natural that position becomes, and the more expensive it becomes for anyone else to challenge. Consider Venice. For centuries, Venice was not the militarily dominant power in northern Italy. There were armies larger than Venice's, rulers more aggressive, city-states with more soldiers and more appetite for conquest. Venice outlasted nearly all of them, not because it won the most battles, because it was built on a lagoon that made it structurally resistant to the kind of force that destroyed its rivals. To attack Venice effectively, an enemy needed naval capacity, geographic knowledge, logistical infrastructure, and a willingness to absorb losses before achieving any meaningful result. The cost of conquest consistently exceeded the value of the prize, so Venice was not attacked the way its rivals were attacked. It was negotiated with, traded with, accommodated. Its position made aggression economically irrational. This is the model Machiavelli found most instructive. Not the prince who wins battles, the city that makes battles unnecessary. Apply this directly to the professional competition described in the sections before this one. The person who competes on skills is exposed. Their position is held by force. They must continuously invest in staying current, updating their knowledge, refreshing their credentials, demonstrating value through active output. The moment they stop, the position begins to decay. Someone is always training, always catching up, always willing to offer the same competence at a lower price. The person who competes on credentials is exposed in the same way. A credential is a standardized marker that confirms someone has met a standard that anyone else can also meet. It differentiates within a cohort without removing the person from the cohort. Both of these are force strategies. They require constant maintenance. They are vulnerable to superior force. The person who has built proprietary positioning has built the economic equivalent of Venice, not the most aggressive competitor, not the most credentialed, the most expensive to attack effectively. Because the cost of replicating their specific intersection of lived experience, contextual trust, and perspective arbitrage is not a matter of motivation or capital. It is a matter of lived time that cannot be compressed, in specific contexts that cannot be reconstructed, at specific moments in specific industries that have already passed. You cannot manufacture this retroactively. You can only build it forward, which means that every day it exists, it becomes simultaneously more valuable and more inaccessible to anyone who did not begin building it when you did. This is the compounding logic that separates proprietary positioning from every other category of advantage. In the early years, the position is fragile. The experience stack exists, but has not yet been recognized or articulated. The trust is real, but has not yet accumulated enough density to be visible from the outside. The perspective arbitrage is operating, but has not yet been tested against the market. The position at this stage is closer to a gloon under construction than a fortified city. But once established, the dynamics reverse entirely. The position deepens rather than eroding. Each additional year in the specific context adds trust that took years to build, perspective that took specific failures to develop, and relationships that cannot be transferred. The attack becomes more expensive, the value compounds, the competition gradually stops coming. His most durable advice was never about how to fight. It was about how to position so that fighting becomes unnecessary. And the same principle builds the most durable financial advantage. Before building anything, a diagnosis is required, because most people who believe they are building durable advantage are building the copyable kind. Efficiently, consistently, and with considerable investment of time and energy. This is not a character flaw. It is a structural problem. The markers of copyable advantage and the markers of durable advantage look nearly identical from the inside. Both require effort. Both produce results. Both generate external validation from people whose opinions are worth having. The difference does not surface until the position is tested, until the market compresses, the technology shifts, or someone with more time and lower overhead decides to occupy the same ground. By then, the investment has already been made. The years have already been spent. This is why diagnosis comes first, not to demoralize, but to redirect before the cost of misdirection compounds further. There are 5 markers. Each one is precise. None of them require interpretation. If the marker is present, the marker is present. Sign 1. You can be replaced by someone with the same title. Not someone better than you. Someone with the same title. Think about that carefully. If the primary criterion for replacing you is that a person holds the same professional designation, then the designation is doing the work, not you. The position is defined by its category, not by the specific combination of experience and perspective you bring to it. You are filling a role that exists independently of your presence. Organizations replace roles with other qualified holders of the same role every day, and the organization continues without meaningful disruption. This is not a judgment about your quality of work. It is a structural observation about the nature of what you have built. If your departure creates a gap that can be filled by posting a job description with your title in the heading, you are the role. You are not a position. Sign 2. Your rate is determined by market research rather than by you. When you set your price, or when an employer sets your compensation, where does the number come from? If the primary reference point is what the market pays for someone with your profile, your years of experience, your credential set, your industry, then the market has already defined your value category, and you are being priced inside it. Market rates exist because markets can compare. Markets compare because the things being compared are sufficiently similar to sit on the same axis. If your rate is determined by benchmarking, you are on the axis. You are comparable. You are, by structural definition, replaceable at market rate by anyone else on the same axis who prices themselves correctly. The person who occupies proprietary positioning does not have a market rate. They have a specific value to a specific context that no benchmark captures, because the benchmark does not contain them. Sign 3. Your advantage decays when you stop actively maintaining it. Ask yourself honestly, if you stopped investing in your advantage for 12 months, stopped attending the conferences, stopped completing the certifications, stopped maintaining the network, how much of it would you still have at the end of that year? If the honest answer is substantially less, then what you have built is a subscription, not an asset. You are renting your position through continuous reinvestment. The moment the payments stop, the position erodes. This is the defining characteristic of skills-based and credential-based advantage. It requires ongoing capital to maintain, because it is always being replicated, always being compressed, always being undercut by a newer framework or a younger cohort who completed the same training more recently. A position built on proprietary intersection does not decay when you stop maintaining it. It compounds. Your experience stack does not expire. Your contextual trust does not evaporate. The perspective that emerged from a specific unrepeatable sequence of environments does not require renewal. If your advantage feels like maintenance, it is not a position. It is a treadmill. Sign 4. You are competing for the same opportunities as people you genuinely respect. This sign requires honesty, because the instinct is to interpret sharing a competitive field with excellent people as confirmation that you are operating at a high level. It is not. It is confirmation that you are on the same axis as excellent people. When you are bidding on the same project, applying to the same position, pitching the same client, you are by definition interchangeable with the others in contention. The selection process exists because the decision maker cannot immediately distinguish which of you is the better fit. You are all close enough to require comparison. Proprietary positioning eliminates this entirely. When your specific intersection of experience, trust, and perspective is what the context requires, the comparison set does not exist. There is no one to compare you to, because no one else has stood where you have stood. Sign 5. You cannot describe your specific value in one sentence without qualifications. Try it right now. One sentence, no qualifications, no it depends, no category labels. If the sentence requires a job title, an industry descriptor, or a list of skills to make sense, it is not a description of a position. It is a summary of a resume. The sentence that describes proprietary positioning is specific enough to differentiate immediately, clear enough to be repeated accurately by someone who heard it once, and precise enough that the person who needs exactly what you offer recognizes it without further explanation. If you cannot produce that sentence, the position is not yet legible. This may mean the position is still forming, or it may mean the position was never built. Either way, the sentence is the test. These are markers, not verdicts. Each one identifies a structural condition. The only wrong response to an accurate diagnosis is to ignore it. The raw material for proprietary positioning exists in almost every person who has worked seriously in any domain for any meaningful period of time. This is not encouragement. It is a structural observation, and it raises an uncomfortable question. If the raw material is that widespread, why do so few people ever assemble it into something the market cannot replicate? The answer is not motivation. It is not discipline. It is not access. There are 3 structural reasons most people never make the transition from possessing the material to building the position, and each one operates invisibly enough that most people never identify it as the obstacle it actually is. The first is the legibility trap. Your experience stack is invisible to you as an asset because you acquired it sequentially, one context at a time, living inside each transition as it happened rather than observing it from outside. The insight that appears extraordinary to someone without your vantage point appears from inside your own head as plain common sense. You cannot see the rarity of the combination because you have never stood anywhere else. The person who spent years in public health policy before moving into health technology and then into hospital consulting does not feel like someone with a rare perspective. They feel like someone who changed direction several times and eventually landed somewhere useful. What they cannot see from inside their own history is that the specific lens those transitions created does not exist anywhere else on the market. The vantage point looks obvious from within it. That is precisely what makes it valuable and precisely what makes it invisible to the person who holds it. When you explain something that seems entirely self-evident to you, and watch someone with deep domain expertise treat it as a genuinely new way of seeing the problem, you are experiencing the legibility trap from inside it. Most people interpret that moment as accidental. They rarely recognize it as evidence of a position worth building on deliberately. The second structural reason is the visible path problem. Every institutional system, every employer, every credential body, every professional development program rewards advantages that can be standardized, measured, and taught at scale. Skills can be rated. Certifications can be counted. Years of experience can be listed. These advantages are legible to the institutions that evaluate and compensate people, which makes them enormously attractive as targets for investment. You know exactly what you are building. You know when you have built it. You know how to signal that you have built it to the systems that reward it. Proprietary positioning offers none of those features. It cannot be curriculumed because it emerges from an individual unrepeatable path. It cannot be rated on a 5-point scale. It does not correspond to a job title or a certification category. The systems that shape where most people direct their energy have no mechanism for recognizing it until it is complete enough to produce outcomes. And by that point, the person has usually already spent years investing in the visible path instead. This is not a failure of intelligence. It is the rational response to a set of incentive structures that consistently reward the wrong category of asset and provide no institutional signal that a different category exists. The third reason is combination avoidance. Building proprietary positioning requires accumulating a combination of experiences that looks from the outside like a lack of coherent focus. The person building a genuine intersection between public health policy and health technology and hospital consulting looks at each individual transition like someone who cannot commit to a domain. The social and professional feedback for this path is consistently negative until the position is complete enough to be visible as a coherent whole. Mentors advise specialization. Hiring systems penalize what reads as inconsistency. Professional communities in each domain treat multi-domain people as visitors rather than members. The institutional pressure towards single-domain depth is constant and explicit, and it is backed by real short-term evidence. The specialist gets the role. The generalist gets passed over. The person building a deliberate combination of contexts gets the most confusing feedback of all, because they are neither deep enough for the specialist evaluation, nor broad enough for the generalist evaluation. They occupy a category the evaluating systems do not have a box for. Most people respond to this feedback the way rational people respond to consistent negative feedback. They stop doing the thing that generates it. They specialize. They pick a lane. They build the kind of advantage the system can recognize and reward. And they build it efficiently and with genuine effort. And at the end of that process, they have something the market can evaluate, hire for, and replace. The raw material is not the constraint. The constraints are the three structural forces that prevent most people from ever seeing it clearly enough to build on it deliberately. The trap of experiencing your own vantage point is ordinary, the pull of institutional rewards toward advantages that can be standardized, and the social pressure against the kind of combination building that looks like confusion until the moment it resolves into something nobody else can occupy. Most people never build an unfair advantage not because they lack the raw material, but because they have been taught to see that material as ordinary, irrelevant, or insufficiently focused. Proprietary positioning is not discovered. It is constructed deliberately through a specific sequence of moves that most people never make because nobody has told them the moves exist. The raw material is already present. The previous section established that. What is missing is not experience, not context, not even insight. What is missing is the structural framework for converting that raw material into a position the market cannot replicate, cannot price against a competitor, and cannot replace with someone who completed the right certification last quarter. 4 moves, executed consistently, in sequence, over time, not quickly, not easily, but with a clarity of direction that changes what you are building, and therefore what you end up with. Move 1 is excavation. Not resume review, not a LinkedIn audit. Excavation. The distinction matters because a resume is organized chronologically, and chronology is the wrong axis. You are not looking for a timeline of what you did. You are looking for the combination that almost no one else on earth has accumulated. Map your experience categorically. Every domain you have inhabited seriously. Every failure that reoriented your understanding. Every transition that placed you at the intersection of 2 worlds that do not normally communicate with each other. The person who spent 4 years in clinical research, then 3 years in pharmaceutical sales, then built a patient advocacy organization is not looking at 3 separate chapters. They are looking at a combination that produces a vantage point no single domain specialist can occupy. The question you are asking is not, what have I done? The question is, what specific sequence of contexts has my life produced that almost no one else's has? And what can I see from that sequence that is invisible to everyone standing in only one of those worlds? Move 2 is identification. Specifically, the identification of your perspective arbitrage. This is not about cataloging what you know that others do not. Knowledge is the wrong frame entirely, and the previous section established why. Perspective arbitrage is about what you can recognize, not what you can recall. What problems are invisible to people inside any single domain you have inhabited that are immediately obvious to you because you have stood in multiple positions simultaneously? What connections between industries, disciplines, or communities does your specific combination reveal that specialists in any one of those areas cannot see from where they stand? What contradictions are you watching people argue about from opposite sides of a wall you have stood on both sides of? The answer to those questions is the arbitrage. And here is the part nobody says directly. It will feel obvious to you. It will feel like plain common sense, because you lived the sequence that produced the vantage point. That sensation of obviousness is not a sign that it lacks value. It is the precise sign that you are standing somewhere nobody else is standing. What feels self-evident from your position appears extraordinary to everyone who does not share it. Move 3 is concentration. The trust trail is not built by expanding your network. It is built by refusing to. Most people understand trust as something that accumulates through volume, through meeting more people, appearing in more rooms, accumulating more connections across more communities. That produces reputation. Reputation is copyable. What is not copyable is the specific trust that a specific community extends to a specific person who has been consistently, reliably present through the situations that actually mattered. Not the conferences, not the newsletters, the moments when a commitment was difficult to keep, and you kept it. The situations where your assessment proved accurate before others recognized it. The problems you stayed with past the point where staying was convenient. Concentrate your presence in one specific context. Signal permanence, not versatility. The person spread across 7 industries and 4 communities has reputation in all of them and authority in none. Authority is what you are building. Authority requires depth. Depth requires the willingness to go narrow when every external signal is rewarding breadth. Move 4 is articulation. The position must become legible, and this is where the construction either becomes functional or remains invisible. Legibility means a precise articulation of the specific problem you solve for the specific context you serve. From the specific vantage point your combination produced. Not a general description of your capabilities. Not a professional summary. A sentence specific enough that the person hearing it either immediately recognizes that you are describing their world or immediately understands you are not built for theirs. Both outcomes are correct. The goal is not to appeal to the broadest possible audience. The goal is to be immediately, unmistakably recognizable to the narrow audience for whom your specific position is irreplaceable. When the articulation is precise enough, something unusual happens. Others begin carrying it for you. When a problem enters their awareness that falls inside your specific intersection, your name arrives with it without any effort on your part, because the description was clear enough to survive the transfer. Vague positioning dies in translation. Precise positioning travels on its own. These 4 moves do not produce results in the first month. This is not a 6-week transformation. The position emerges the way Venice emerged, not through a single decisive action, but through the accumulated depth of consistent choices over time. In the early stages, it is fragile, specific, and easily dismissed by people operating on conventional frameworks of what professional value looks like. That fragility is temporary. Once the position reaches a threshold of clarity and contextual trust, it begins to compound rather than decay. Each year inside a well-constructed position makes the position more valuable and simultaneously more expensive for a competitor to challenge. The investment required to replicate what you have built grows faster than any competitor's incentive to make it. That is the Machiavellian outcome. Not winning every contest. Constructing the terrain where contesting you stops making economic sense. 4 moves, 1 destination. The place where competition becomes irrelevant. There is a state at the far side of this setup that defies explanation to anyone who hasn't personally encountered it, because it requires the absence of something so constant in most professional lives that its absence is disorienting. The absence of the experience of competing itself, of being compared, of being priced against someone with the same title, the same credentials, the same listed competencies, of winning or losing a zero-sum contest for an opportunity that 20 other people were also pursuing. That specific friction disappears. What replaces it is something structurally different. The people who once occupied the same competitive space become your referral network, not out of generosity but out of structural honesty. When they encounter a problem that falls precisely in, say, your intersection, you are the only person they can recommend without misleading their client. Machiavelli's Endgame was never the prince who won the most battles. It was the prince whose position made battle a calculation no rational opponent would accept. But the specific intersection of where you have been, who trusted you there, and what you can see from that position, belongs to no one else. Build it deliberately, defend it patiently, and watch competition become slowly and permanently irrelevant.